The oncoming storm. The bridge of the UES Thunderchild fell silent as the transmission ended. Captain Ilara Reyes stood motionless, her dark eyes fixed on the now empty view screen where moments before she had witnessed the fall of humanity's furthest colony. Proxima Colony. Population 8 million, she whispered, more to herself than to her crew. Gone in less than 6 hours. Commander David Chen, her XO, approached quietly. At 43, Ilara had served Earth Fleet for over 2 decades, but nothing in her career had prepared her for what they now faced. "Orders, Captain," Chen asked, his voice steady despite the horror they'd just witnessed. Ilara straightened her shoulders. At 5'10", with a frame hardened by years in variable gravity, she commanded respect through presence alone. The silver streaks in her black hair caught the blue glow of the tactical displays. Set course for the Proxima evacuation corridor. Maximum burn. Any survivors will be heading for the jump point. Captain. Chen hesitated. Fleet Command ordered all vessels to fall back to the Sol defensive perimeter. Ilara's jaw tightened. There are civilian ships out there, David. We're not leaving them to die. The Thunderchild was humanity's newest warship, a kilometer-long marvel of human engineering with experimental weapon systems that had yet to be fully tested. It represented the pinnacle of human military technology, yet Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that it might not be enough against what was coming. "Prepare all systems for combat operations," she ordered. "I want weapons hot and shields at maximum. If we encounter them, I want to be ready." Them. Not even a proper name yet, just the Swarm. A collective consciousness that had appeared at the edge of human space 3 months ago. Since then, 17 colonies had fallen. No warnings, no demands, just systematic extinction. 8 hours later, the Thunderchild dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Proxima system. The scene that greeted them was one of devastation. Debris fields stretched across space where orbital stations had once been. Proxima, once a thriving terraformed world, now showed massive thermal blooms across its surface, impact sites from orbital bombardment. "Multiple contacts ahead," announced Lieutenant Paddle from the sensor station. "Civilian vessels, sir. Approximately 30 ships of various classes. They appear damaged." "Hail them," Ilara ordered. "Let them know we're here to escort them to safety." The view screen flickered to life, showing the haggard face of a middle-aged man in a civilian captain's uniform. Behind him, smoke drifted through a damaged bridge. "This is Captain Reyes of the UES Thunderchild. We're here to provide escort." Relief washed over the man's face. "Captain, this is the transport vessel Horizon Dawn. We have over 2,000 refugees aboard." His voice cracked. "We were 7 ships when we left Proxima. What happened to the others?" "Those things. They followed us through the jump point, picked us off one by one. We thought we'd lost them, but our long-range sensors show they're coming again." Ilara turned to her tactical officer. "Lieutenant Morris, status of our weapons systems." "All systems online, Captain. Railguns charge, missile tubes loaded, and the prototype Land-Sea system is at standby." She nodded. The linear accelerated neutron cascade emitter was untested in actual combat, but theoretical models suggested it might penetrate the swarm's advanced shielding. "Captain," Patel called out, his voice tight with urgency, "I'm detecting multiple signatures approaching at high velocity. Configuration matches known swarm vessels." "How many?" 5 scout craft, Captain. Larger vessels following approximately 30 minutes behind." Ilara's mind raced. 5 scouts they might handle, but if the main force caught up with them, neither the Thunderchild nor the refugee fleet would stand a chance. "Get those civilian ships moving toward the jump point," she ordered. "We'll cover their retreat." As the refugee ships began their lumbering turn toward safety, the Thunderchild moved to intercept the incoming threat. On the tactical display, 5 red markers approached rapidly. "Swarm vessels entering weapons range in 30 seconds, Morris reported. "Target lead vessels with railguns," Ilara commanded. Hold the land sea in reserve. We don't know enough about its effectiveness yet. The Thunderchild's massive railgun batteries swiveled into position. Each could accelerate a 20-kilogram tungsten slug to a significant fraction of light speed, enough kinetic energy to shatter most conventional warships. Fire when ready, Ilara said calmly. The ship shuddered as the railguns discharged. On the view screen, streaks of superheated air traced the path of the projectiles. Two found their mark, striking the lead swarm vessel. For a moment, the alien craft's shields flared bright, then collapsed as the kinetic energy overwhelmed them. The vessel itself seemed to fold inward, crumpling like paper before exploding in a brilliant flash. Direct hit, Morris called out. One enemy vessel destroyed. But the remaining 4 scouts didn't break formation or take evasive action. They continued their approach, almost as if they're sacrificing velocity for shield strength, Chen observed. They're learning from what happened to the first. Prepare another volley, Ilara ordered. Different velocity and impact pattern. Don't let them adapt. The second volley launched, but this time only one projectile found its mark, and the swarm vessel's shields held. They're adapting too quickly, Morris said, frustration evident in his voice. The swarm vessels were now close enough to return fire. Strange energy pulses, more like distortions in space-time than conventional weapons, lanced out toward the Thunderchild. The first missed, but the second struck the port bow. The ship rocked violently. Alert klaxons blared. Damage report, Ilara called out, steadying herself against her command chair. Shield integrity at 62% in the affected sector, reported the damage control officer. Whatever those weapons are, they're partially phasing through our defenses. Ilara made a quick decision. Deploy countermeasures. Let's see how they handle chaff and ECM. The Thunderchild released a cloud of sensor-jamming particles and began broadcasting electromagnetic interference across all bands. The effect on the swarm vessels was immediate and unexpected. They seemed to hesitate, their formation becoming momentarily disorganized. Their coordination is disrupted, Chen observed. It's like they can't communicate properly through the interference. Ilara leaned forward. Lieutenant Morris, target the LANC system on the lead vessel. Let's see what our new toy can do. The prototype weapon hummed to life. Unlike the railguns, the LANC emitted no visible beam, but the effects were dramatic. The targeted swarm vessel convulsed as though struck by an invisible hammer. Its organic-looking hull began to blister and rupture, venting atmosphere and what appeared to be some kind of fluid into space. Direct hit, Morris reported, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. Their shields didn't stop it. The other vessels are breaking formation, Patel added. They appear to be retreating. Ilara allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The land sea had worked somewhat, but the victory was temporary at best. Status of the refugee fleet, she asked. Approaching the jump point now, Captain. They'll be clear in approximately 10 minutes. And the main swarm force. Patel's expression fell. Still incoming. Estimated arrival in 22 minutes. Not enough time. The refugees would be caught at the jump point, a moment of vulnerability as their drives realigned for the transition to FTL. We need more time, Ilara muttered. Then, louder. Set course to intercept the main swarm force. We're going to buy those people an escape. Chen stepped closer. Captain, with respect, that's suicide. We barely handled 5 scouts. Long-range sensors show at least 30 vessels in the approaching force. I'm aware of the odds, Commander. Ilara's voice was steel. But those refugees represent the last survivors of Proxima. 8 million people died there today. I won't let these 2,000 die too. She turned to address the bridge crew. The land sea works, at least partially, and we've discovered that their coordination suffers under electronic warfare. Those are weaknesses we can exploit. What exactly are you proposing, Captain? Chen asked. Ilara called up the star chart of the region. Here, She pointed to a dense nebula approximately 1 light-hour away. The Tharsis Nebula. High metallic content, severe electromagnetic disturbances. If we can lure the swarm in there, we might be able to disrupt their coordination further. And then what? Then we fight, Commander. We make them bleed for every meter they advance toward Earth. And maybe, just maybe, we find a weakness that the fleet can exploit later. Ilara opened a channel to engineering. Dr. Kenzo, how quickly can you modify the LANC to emit a broader spectrum? The chief engineer's voice came through, tinged with his characteristic Japanese accent. Based on what we just observed, perhaps 2 hours. But Captain, broadening the spectrum will significantly reduce penetration power. I don't need penetration. I need disruption. The swarm operates as a collective consciousness. They think as one. If we can disrupt that communication. Kenzo's excitement was palpable. Yes, I see where you're going. Using the LANCE as a massive signal jammer, tuned specifically to whatever frequency they use for their hive mind. Exactly. Get to work. You have 1 hour. Ilara closed the channel and turned back to Chen. Set course for the Tharsis Nebula, maximum burn, and send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them. She paused. Tell them the Thunderchild is testing enemy capabilities and will report findings. Transmit all our sensor data and observations about the swarm's vulnerabilities. They'll order us to return to the defensive perimeter, Chen warned. Probably, Ilara agreed. But by the time their response reaches us, we'll be too deep in the nebula for reliable communications. A small grim smile touched her lips. Sometimes, Commander, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission, especially when 8 million lives demand justice. As the Thunderchild altered course toward the nebula, Ilara watched the refugee ships finally reach the jump point. One by one, they disappeared into the safety of FTL, carrying with them the last remnants of Proxima Colony. They're clear, Captain, Paddle reported. Ilara nodded. Good. Now let's make sure they have a home to return to. The massive engines of the Thunderchild flared bright as the warship accelerated toward its rendezvous with the swarm. Behind them, the evacuation corridor lay empty. Ahead, through the shroud of the Tharsis Nebula, waited an enemy that had never known defeat, until now. Defiance's edge. The Tharsis Nebula loomed ahead of the Thunderchild, a vast, swirling cloud of dust and ionized gas that painted the view screen in shades of crimson and amber. Tendrils of cosmic matter reached out like grasping fingers, backlit by the radiance of newborn stars forming within its depths. Entering nebula perimeter in 30 seconds, announced the helmsman, Lieutenant Rivera. Static had already begun to interfere with the ship's sensors, exactly as Captain Ilara Reyes had hoped. Status of the swarm vessels? Ilara asked, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. Still in pursuit, Captain, Paddle replied. 37 vessels confirmed. They're maintaining formation despite the nebula's interference. Ilara nodded. The swarm's single-minded pursuit was predictable, a weakness they could exploit. Whatever intelligence guided them seemed incapable of considering the possibility of a trap. Dr. Kenzo, she called through the comm. Status of the modified Lancey. The engineer's voice came through, distorted by interference. Final calibrations complete, Captain. Based on our analysis of their communication patterns, we've tuned the LANC to target the quantum frequencies they appear to use. But I must warn you, this is theoretical at best. Noted, Doctor. Stand by. Ilara turned to her XO. Commander Chen, deploy our sensor drones throughout the nebula. Program them to emit the same electronic countermeasures that disrupted the scouts earlier. Aye, Captain. The Thunderchild pushed deeper into the nebula, its advanced navigational systems compensating for the reduced visibility. Behind them, the swarm followed relentlessly, like predators scenting blood. They're not slowing down, Morris observed. If anything, they're accelerating. Good, Ilara replied. Take us to coordinates Delta 7. That's where we make our stand. Delta 7 was a relatively clear pocket within the nebula, surrounded by denser clouds of metallic dust, a natural arena for the coming battle. As they approached, Ilara activated the ship-wide comm. All hands, this is the captain. By now you're aware we've deliberately placed ourselves in the path of a superior enemy force. I won't sugarcoat our situation. We are outnumbered and facing an enemy that has destroyed entire worlds. She paused, letting the gravity of their situation sink in. But today, we discovered something important. They can be hurt. They can be confused. They are not invincible. The swarm thinks as one, and that is both their strength and their weakness. Today, we will teach them that humans do not think as one. We think as individuals. We adapt. We improvise. And most importantly, we do not go quietly. Throughout the ship, crew members exchanged glances, some fearful, others determined. They had all joined Earth fleet knowing the risks. Now, they would face them together. Battle stations, Ilara ordered. And may whatever gods you believe in watch over us all. The first swarm vessels emerged from the nebula's mist 20 minutes later. Unlike their previous encounters, these were not mere scouts. These were warships, massive, organic-looking constructs that seemed to pulse with an inner light. They're scanning us, Paddle reported. Multiple frequencies. Let them look, Ilara said. Activate ECM drones. Throughout the surrounding space, the deployed drones began broadcasting their electromagnetic interference. The effect on the approaching swarm vessels was subtle but noticeable. Their perfect formation wavered slightly, movements becoming less synchronized. It's working, Chen muttered. For now, Ilara cautioned. They'll adapt quickly. Morris, target the lead vessels with conventional weapons. Let's see if we can provoke them into making a mistake. The Thunderchild's railgun spoke again, sending hypersonic projectiles streaking toward the swarm. Most were absorbed by their advanced shields, but one penetrated, tearing through an alien vessel's flank. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The swarm ships accelerated, weapons charging. Evasive maneuvers. Ilara ordered. Take us deeper into the dust field. The Thunderchild banked hard, its massive engines straining as it dove toward a particularly dense cloud of nebular matter. Behind them, energy weapons discharge, most missing their mark, but one catching the aft section of the human warship. The ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across multiple consoles. Damage report. Hull breach on Deck 12, automatically sealed, reported the damage control officer. Shields at 40% in that sector. That last hit nearly overloaded our power grid. Ilara gripped the arms of her command chair. The swarm weapons were even more powerful than intelligence had suggested. A direct hit might cripple them. Where are they now? Still pursuing, but they've slowed at the edge of the dust cloud. They seem hesitant. Interesting. Ilara studied the tactical display. The swarm vessels had indeed paused, forming a semicircle at the perimeter of the densest part of the nebula. They don't want to follow us in, she realized aloud. The dust must interfere with their sensors, or something more. The metallic content, Dr. Kenzo's voice came through the comm. Captain, I've been analyzing the composition of this dust cloud. It contains unusual concentrations of rare earth metals that generate micromagnetic fields when ionized. If the swarm uses quantum entanglement for communication, as we suspect, then the magnetic fields would disrupt it. Ilara finished. That's why they're hesitating. A plan began to form in her mind, reckless, desperate, but with a chance of success. Dr. Kenzo, would a high-energy discharge within this dust cloud magnify those magnetic disruptions? Theoretically, yes. A sufficiently powerful energy release would further ionize the metallic particles, creating a cascade effect across the entire nebula. And if we modified the LANC to act as that catalyst? There was a pause as Kenzo considered. It could work, but it would require channeling all our remaining power through the LANC emitter. We would be defenseless afterward, assuming we survive the discharge backlash. Ilara turned to Chen. Options. The XO shook his head. We're too deep in the nebula to outrun them, and too damaged for a prolonged engagement. Fleet reinforcements are at least 6 hours away, if they're coming at all. Then we proceed with the plan. Ilara rose from her chair. Dr. Kenzo, begin modifications to the land sea. Divert all non-essential power. Lieutenant Morris, plot a course that will take us in a wide arc through the densest part of the dust cloud. I want to gather as much of this material around us as possible. And then what, Captain? Chen asked quietly. Then we invite them in, she replied, and show them why humanity doesn't surrender. An hour later, the Thunderchild had completed its circuit through the nebula, leaving a trail of sensor drones behind. The ship now floated at the center of an immense cloud of swirling metallic dust, its hull occasionally sparking as particles struck the weakened shields. The swarm had maintained their position at the perimeter, occasionally firing long-range weapons that dissipated harmlessly in the dust. They seemed to be waiting, perhaps for reinforcements, or for the humans to emerge from their temporary sanctuary. Dr. Kenzo reports the modified land sea is ready, Chen announced. But it will completely drain our power reserves. We'll have emergency systems only for at least 30 minutes afterward. Ilara nodded. Signal the swarm. Signal them. How? A targeted burst from our communications array, she explained. Nothing complex. Just enough to let them know we're still here and willing to fight. Minutes later, a simple radio pulse emanated from the Thunderchild, cutting through the interference of the nebula. It was the equivalent of throwing a stone at a hornet's nest. The swarm responded immediately. Their formation tightened, and as one, they began to move into the dust cloud. They're taking the bait, Morris reported. All vessels advancing at attack speed. Ilara watched the tactical display as the red markers representing swarm vessels pushed closer. They want to finish this. They think we're cornered. Aren't we? Chen asked, the ghost of a smile on his lips. Cornered, yes. Defeated, no. Ilara opened a channel to engineering. Dr. Kenzo, begin power diversion sequence. Channel everything to the land sea. Throughout the ship, lights dimmed as energy was redirected. The hum of the engines quieted, leaving an eerie silence broken only by the occasional impact of nebular particles against the hull. On the tactical display, the swarm continued their approach, now less than 5 minutes from weapons range. All hands, secure for impact, Ilara ordered. This is going to get rough. The first swarm vessels entered the heart of the dust cloud, where the Thunderchild waited. Their organic hulls seemed to pulse with anticipation, weapons charged and ready. They're targeting our critical systems, Patel warned. Multiple lock-ons detected. Land-sea status, Ilara demanded. Power levels at 98% and climbing, Chen reported. 1 minute to full capacity. It would be close, too close. The lead swarm vessel fired, its strange spatial weapon cutting through the dust like a scythe. The Thunderchild banked hard, the shot grazing its starboard side. Damage alerts flashed across multiple stations. Shields failing. Morris called out, "We can't take another hit like that." "Land CE at full power," Chen announced. "Ready to fire on your command." The swarm vessels had fully surrounded them now, forming a sphere of death. Their next volley would surely cripple the human warship. "Target the center of the dust cloud," Ilara ordered. "Maximum dispersion. Fire." The land-sea discharge, not as a weapon aimed at an enemy vessel, but as a catalyst activating the metallic particles throughout the nebula. There was no beam, no projectile, just a sudden, silent pulse of energy that radiated outward. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the dust began to glow, particles becoming incandescent as they absorbed and re-emitted energy. A wave of ionization spread outward, engulfing both the Thunderchild and the surrounding swarm vessels. On the bridge, systems sparked and failed as the electromagnetic backlash washed over them. Emergency lighting activated, bathing the crew in red light. "What's happening to them?" Ilara asked, her voice barely audible over the ship's groaning hull. Through the view screen, they could see the swarm vessels convulsing. The organic ships writhed as though in pain, their perfect coordination shattered. Some collided with others, while some fired weapons seemingly at random. "It's working," Chen said in disbelief. "The magnetic disruption is severing their hive-mind connection." "Not just disrupting," Dr. Kenzo corrected, having made his way to the bridge. "Based on these readings, we've created a feedback loop in their quantum communication network. They're experiencing a system-wide failure." Ilara watched in fascination as the mighty swarm, conquerors of 17 worlds, fell into chaos around them. Without their collective consciousness to guide them, the individual vessels seemed almost lost, their movements erratic and uncoordinated. "They're retreating," Patel announced as power gradually returned to his sensors, breaking formation and withdrawing from the nebula. A cheer went up across the bridge, quickly silenced by a sharp crack as structural damage sent tremors through the ship. "Don't celebrate yet," Ilara cautioned. "Damage report. Hull integrity at 60%, the damage control officer reported. Life support stable but multiple systems offline. Engines at minimal capacity. We're alive, but we're not going anywhere fast." Ilara nodded. "Send a distress signal to Fleet Command. Transmit all data we've gathered on the swarm's vulnerabilities, especially their reaction to the magnetic disruption." "Captain," Patel called out, excitement in his voice. "Long-range sensors are picking up Earth fleet signatures. They're coming our way. Must have been closer than we thought. Or they decided we might be onto something after all," Chen suggested. Ilara allowed herself a small smile. "Either way, I'll take it." She stood, surveying her battered bridge and exhausted crew. "You've all performed beyond expectations today. Whatever happens next, remember this moment. The day humanity stood against the swarm and didn't blink." 3 days later, the Thunderchild limped into Earth orbit, escorted by a protective screen of fleet vessels. The battle-scarred warship drew stares from passing civilian craft, its hull marked with scorch patterns and impact craters that told the tale of its desperate stand. On the observation deck, Ilara stood beside Admiral Kovacs, watching as Earth rotated slowly beneath them. "Your report makes for interesting reading, Captain," the Admiral said. "Particularly the part where you directly disobeyed orders to return to the defensive perimeter." Ilara remained at attention. "Yes, sir. You risked Earth's most advanced warship and a crew of 500 on what amounts to a hunch about the enemy's communication methods." "Yes, sir. And in doing so, you discovered the first effective countermeasure against an enemy that has destroyed 17 colonies and killed over 30 million people." The Admiral turned to face her, his expression softening slightly. "The Security Council has reviewed your findings. Based on the data you provided, we're already modifying our defensive systems to generate similar disruption fields. Every ship in the fleet will be equipped within the month." Relief washed over Ilara, though she maintained her professional demeanor. "The swarm will adapt, sir. They always do." "Perhaps. But thanks to you, we now know they're not invincible. More importantly, we know they can be surprised." He gestured toward Earth. "Those 8 billion people down there have hope now. That's no small thing." "What about the Thunderchild, sir?" "Full repairs and upgrades. Dr. Kenzo's modifications to the LANC system will be standardized across the fleet, and you'll be receiving new orders." "Sir, the Security Council wants to take the fight to them, Captain. Reconnaissance, intelligence gathering, and targeted strikes against swarm staging areas. They want the Thunderchild to lead the effort." Ilara looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the swarm was regrouping, perhaps already adapting to the disruption strategy. But they were learning too. For the first time since the swarm appeared, humanity had scored a victory. "We'll be ready," Admiral. As she left the observation deck, Ilara's personal comm unit chimed. It was a notification from fleet personnel. The refugee ships from Proxima had safely reached Earth. 2,000 lives saved. It wasn't enough to balance the 8 million lost, but it was something. The swarm had conquered galaxies without resistance, planets falling before them like dominoes. Until one human ship had said no. Until the Thunderchild had shown that humanity would not go quietly into extinction. It was just the beginning of a long war, Ilara knew. But beginnings mattered. And this one had started with defiance.